Music legend Ozzy Osbourne has died. Osbourne, as you know, pioneered heavy metal.
It's hard to even say this out loud, but the world just lost a legend. Ozzy Osbourne, the guy we all know as the Prince of Darkness, passed away at 76. If you're a fan of rock music, heavy metal, or just someone who loves a good story about a wild life, this one's gonna hit you hard. Ozzy wasn't just a singer. He was a force. A guy who changed music forever and lived a life bigger than most of us can imagine. So grab a seat, maybe a tissue, and let's talk about the incredible journey of Ozzy Osbourne, from his rough start in England to becoming one of the most unforgettable names in rock history. Picture this. It's the late 1940s in Birmingham, England, a city full of factories and smoke. That's where John Michael Osbourne, who we all know as Ozzy, was born on December 3rd, 1948. Life wasn't easy for young Ozzy. His family didn't have much money, and school was tough for him. He had dyslexia, which made reading and writing really hard, and back then, people didn't understand it like they do now. Kids picked on him, and even one of his future bandmates, Tony Iommi, gave him a hard time. But Ozzy was a fighter, even as a kid. He didn't let the bullying or the struggles stop him. Instead, he found something that made him feel alive. Music. And not just any music. He was drawn to the raw, loud energy of rock and roll. By the time Ozzy was a teenager, he was already dreaming big. He loved the Beatles and wanted to be a star like them. But before he could chase that dream, life threw him some curveballs. He dropped out of school at 15 and worked all kinds of odd jobs, like at a car factory and even as a plumber's assistant. He got into some trouble, too, and spent a little time in jail for small crimes. It could have been the end of his story right there. But Ozzy wasn't the kind of guy to give up. He had this fire inside him, this need to create something bigger than himself. And that's when everything changed. In 1968, Ozzy teamed up with three other guys from his hometown, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward. They called their band Black Sabbath, named after a creepy old horror movie. These four guys weren't like the happy poppy bands of the time. Birmingham was a tough, industrial place, and their music reflected that. It was dark, heavy, and loud, like nothing anyone had heard before. When they played songs like Paranoid and Iron Man, people didn't just listen. They felt it in their bones. Black Sabbath's music was like a thunderstorm, and Ozzy's voice was the lightning. His high, eerie wail made you feel like something wild was waking up inside you. That's why people started calling him the Prince of Darkness. It wasn't just about the music. It was about the vibe he gave off, like he was part of something bigger and scarier than the everyday world. Black Sabbath's first album came out in 1970, and it was a game changer. It hit the top 10 in the UK, and suddenly, these working-class kids from Birmingham were stars. Their next album, Paranoid, was even bigger, with songs that are still classics today. War Pigs and Iron Man weren't just songs. They were anthems for people who felt like the world was against them. Ozzy's voice and the band's heavy riffs spoke to kids who were angry, lost, or just looking for something real. But being in Black Sabbath wasn't all fun and games. The band lived a wild life, with lots of partying and drugs. Ozzy especially struggled with addiction. It got so bad that in 1979, the band kicked him out. Can you imagine? The guy who helped create heavy metal was told he couldn't be in his own band anymore. That could have broken him, but Ozzy wasn't done. Not even close. With the help of his wife, Sharon, who was his manager and biggest supporter, he started a solo career. In 1980, he released his first solo album, Blizzard of Oz, and it was a monster hit. Songs like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley showed the world that Ozzy was still a star, maybe even bigger than before. His solo career took off, and he kept making music that fans loved. He worked with amazing guitarists like Randy Rhoads, who helped make those early solo albums so special. Ozzy's shows were wild, too. He'd throw raw meat into the crowd, spray water everywhere, and once, He even bit the head off a bat during a concert. Yeah, you heard that right, a bat. He thought it was a fake prop, but it was real, and it became one of the craziest stories in rock history. That moment made people see Ozzy as this larger-than-life figure, a guy who wasn't afraid to push boundaries. But life wasn't always easy for Ozzy. His addiction to drugs and alcohol caused a lot of pain. He went to rehab many times, and there were moments when he hurt the people he loved most, like Sharon and their kids, Kelly, Jack, and Amy. In the 1980s, he even got into trouble when some people blamed his music for bad things that happened, like a fan's suicide. It wasn't fair, but it showed how much power his music had. Despite all the chaos, Ozzy kept going. In the 1990s, Sharon started Ozzfest, a huge music festival where Ozzy and other heavy metal bands played for thousands of fans. It became a place where new bands could shine, and it showed how much Ozzy cared about keeping the metal scene alive. Then, in the early 2000s, something totally unexpected happened. Ozzy became a TV star. He and his family, Sharon, Kelly, and Jack, starred in a reality show called The Osbournes. It was on MTV, and it showed the world a different side of Ozzy. Instead of the wild rock star, people saw a funny, sometimes confused dad who loved his family but was terrible at things like using a remote control. The show was a huge hit, and it made Ozzy a household name, even for people who didn't listen to heavy metal. Suddenly, grandmas and kids knew who Ozzy was. The show ran from 2002 to 2005 and won an Emmy Award, which is a big deal for a TV show. It showed that Ozzy wasn't just a rock star. He was a person who could make you laugh and feel like you knew him. As Ozzy got older, his health started to slow him down. In 2003, he had a bad accident on a quad bike that broke his neck, collarbone, and ribs. It was so serious that he stopped breathing for a minute and a half. He survived, but the injuries stayed with him. Then, in 2005, he was diagnosed with a kind of Parkinson's disease called Parkin syndrome, which made his body shake and made it hard to move sometimes. In 2019, he fell again, and it made things even worse. He had to cancel a lot of his tours, and in 2020, he told the world he had Parkinson's. It was tough to hear, because Ozzy always seemed unstoppable. But even with all these challenges, he kept making music. His 2022 album, Patient Number 9, was so good it got nominated for a Grammy. That's the kind of guy Ozzy was. Nothing could keep him down for long. Just a few weeks before he passed away, Ozzy did something incredible. On July 5th, 2025, he went back to his hometown of Birmingham for a huge concert called Back to the Beginning. He was 76, sick, and had to perform sitting on a throne because he couldn't stand for long. But when he sang, it was like he was 20 again. He did a few of his solo songs, and then his old Black Sabbath bandmates, Tony, Geezer, and Bill, joined him on stage. They played War Pigs, Iron Man, and Paranoid, and the crowd of 40,000 people went wild. Ozzy told them, "You have no idea how I feel. Thank you from the bottom of my heart." It was his way of saying goodbye, and it was perfect. That concert was his final bow, a moment that showed the world why he was a legend. It's going to be shown in theaters in 2026. So if you want to feel that magic, you'll get the chance. Ozzy passed away on July 22, 2025, surrounded by his family, Sharon, Kelly, Jack, Amy, and his other son, Louis. They didn't say exactly what caused his death, but we know he'd been fighting health problems for a long time. His family asked for privacy, and we should respect that. But what we can do is celebrate the life he lived. Ozzy wasn't perfect. He'd be the first to tell you that. He struggled with addiction, made mistakes, and had some wild moments that shocked the world. But he also gave us music that made us feel alive. Songs like Crazy Train, Paranoid, and No More Tears aren't just songs. They're part of who we are. They're the soundtrack to late-night drives, to moments when we felt unstoppable, to times when we needed something to scream along to. What made Ozzy so special wasn't just his music, it was his heart. He was a kid from a tough town who never forgot where he came from. He loved his fans, and he always gave everything he had on stage. Even when he was sick, even when he was in pain, he wanted to perform for us. He once said in an interview, "If I die tomorrow, at least I'll be remembered." And he was right. We'll remember him as the guy who helped invent heavy metal, who made us laugh on TV, who showed us that you can keep going no matter what life throws at you. Ozzy was a rebel, a joker, a dad, a husband, and a legend. He wasn't just the Prince of Darkness. He was a light for so many of us. This script is getting long, and I want to make sure we cover everything about Ozzy's incredible life. I've got more to share about his legacy, the way he inspired other bands, and how fans all over the world are honoring him now. If you want me to keep going, just type "continue" in the chat, and I'll pick up right where we left off. I promise it'll be worth it. We're only halfway through his story,